Hello everyone, it's Lisa here to review with you Week 8 activities for Web Design Online. So let's go ahead and jump in. Assignments and lectures. And let's scroll down to Week 8. Okay, so down here at Week 8, for the remainder of the class, we will not be doing any more technology assignments. So basically each week for the next 8 or 7 weeks, you will be focusing on your term project, which is creating this 5 to 10 page website. And we've been moving along on that. Last week you created your wireframes, and now this week we're moving forward on creating our mock-up in Photoshop. So we're still working in Photoshop this week, and I'm going to review with you picking up from the wireframes that I showed you last week and kind of go through how I start mocking up this website. So let me jump in here real quick, and we've got the problems and solutions listed here, as well as I've got a write-up of the assignment. And I describe here what you need to be aware of this week and how you're going to need to have your collection of content sort of ready and waiting for you to use this week, because you've had up till now to do your research and compile all your images and locate all your text and all the content that's going to go into your website. Well, now it's time to start utilizing that content, and you'll be bringing that content into Photoshop and you'll start creating your web pages there. I also made reference here to a couple of areas you need to be aware of as when placing your content into Photoshop, and that is when you're sizing images or image content inside Photoshop, be sure that you hold down the Shift key so that you do not distort the image proportions, and that's very critical. So make sure you do that, as well as do not enlarge any Photoshop images larger than 110%, because anytime you enlarge anything in Photoshop more than 110%, you lose image quality, and you can start to tell that the image is degrading in terms of quality when you enlarge it any larger than 110. So keep in mind those two particular not do's, I guess you can call them, the do not do's of this week. Let's see, sometimes I get lost for words on these videos. It's so awkward when I have to talk to a screen, but I'm getting used to it. Okay, so what you're going to produce for this week is 2 Photoshop mock-ups, and I've given you a handout here to reference, and I'm going to go ahead and click that handout, and this is it here. This is the handout that I gave you, and I think I posted this earlier in another week as well, and I reviewed it already once. But what you want to keep in mind on this handout this week is the area here where it says page criteria, and what you need to be aware of what you need to have on each page in terms of several images need to be on some pages. Some of the pages have to have a scroll bar activated, meaning there has to be enough text so that you have to activate a scroll bar on your browser window, and so on. So be aware of that. Although some of that won't be anything you'll be able to do anything about at this point in Photoshop, but when you get into Dreamweaver, you'll be activating some of that scroll bar technique. Okay, so be aware of the page criteria as you're building your pages in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to Blackboard here, and back one here to the assignment write-up. So this week it's worth 50 points. And what's important about this week's activity is that you get as much as you can finished between the rest of this week and next week, because next week you're going to proceed forward and start slicing up all your web pages and preparing them for creating your HTML documents in Dreamweaver. So it's important that you have all your Photoshop work done by next week, because we won't have any more time to spend in Photoshop after that. So you'll need to work diligently between now and then in order to get that achieved, just so you know. Okay, so I'm going to jump over here into Photoshop 6, and I have my demonstration set up here. So last week I went over how to create these wireframes. I created a generic wireframe for my inside page and a generic wireframe for my outside page. Okay, and I applied, you know, an element of design. I want to keep my website nice and clean. I'm sticking with white and a simple gray, and that's what I've chosen. I'm expecting all of you to not just duplicate what I've given you here, but to actually apply some design sensibilities to your website in terms of choosing colors, in terms of layout, and those types of things. So keep in mind that as you're working through this, I am looking at your design aesthetic on how you put these web pages together. Okay, so keep that in mind. So last time I showed you these two wireframes. This time I'm showing you these two mock-ups that were generated from these two wireframes. Okay, so over here is my home page, and I have this blank field, which last week I wasn't sure what I was going to put in there. However, I went and compiled some images, and I've chosen a few of my own photos that I'm going to go ahead and use for that home page. So what I've done here is I've actually applied those images to this mock-up. Now, you're not reinventing the wheel here. Basically what you're doing, let me go ahead and isolate this page out of the grouping here and make it a little bit bigger so that you can kind of see. Okay, so working off of the wireframe from last week. Okay, let me bring up my layers here. Working off the wireframe from last week, we had a header, banner, navigation, and footer. We went through all that last week in terms of our groupings. I decided that I wanted to go ahead and use this image, so I start building my header. So I went into my header and I started bringing in some of these graphics. Now what I've found in Photoshop 6, for some reason, it doesn't let you isolate and move elements around once you group them. So for instance, if I select this layer here and I want to move just that layer, it literally moves the whole thing. So I have to, let's see, go ahead if I want to move this layer. Oh, now it's working. Okay, so never mind. It wasn't working for me in the last file. Okay, so never mind what I just said. I guess you can go ahead and you can isolate. But for some reason it wasn't working that way in the other file. Okay, so over here I've got this image I want to place in here. So what I've done is I am using my wireframe document to start building my web page. Again, just to reiterate, the size of your wireframe document should be in terms of pixels 1024 by 768. Okay, so I'm looking at my image size here, and indeed this is the size of my document. Make sure of that. I'm not reinventing a new page here. I'm just using my my wireframes from last week, and now I'm developing a mock-up out of it is what I'm doing. So using the bar that I'm using it as a mask, okay? And I kind of have done a technique called clipping. And the way that's done, okay, let me go ahead and show you here and turn off all this other stuff here so you can kind of just see what, all right, where is it? Okay, so we'll turn off that. Okay, so I've turned everything else off, and I brought this image in. So you see this image out here? However, if you turn that image off and turn on your field for your wireframe, you want that image to sort of fit in this region here. But I prefer not to crop it down because I may change my mind later and want a different section of that image. So I want to use the full image. I just want to mask it out for the moment. So in order to do that, I'm going to use my wireframe, and it's very easy to do. You bring your image in, and your image needs to be sitting on top of your wireframe box. So this is my wireframe box, this is my image. And if you hold down the Option key in Photoshop, you'll get this arrow here. And if you click that arrow, notice that it will crop or mask out the unwanted area of that image. Okay, and this is nice because if I change my mind and I want to move that image around, I still can. Also, what's nice is if you use your arrow keys, you can kind of see here how I can move this image back and forth or up and down based on what's left in the image, because I haven't kind of, you know, committed to it. I've just masked it out. I could still go back to the full image size if I need to. So that's what I would recommend, is that you use the boxes that you created in your wireframe to crop out unwanted areas of the images that you bring in. Okay? Otherwise, if you're not cropping out unwanted areas, you're either sizing the images. And again, you can size down as much as you want, but don't enlarge more than 110% any of the images that you bring into your Photoshop document. Okay? All right, so I proceed then to create the rest of my design. I bring in a bar up here, and then I bring in a white ghosted bar here, and then I bring in my logo, and I'm starting to develop a sense of design here. Now, I'm expecting you to develop this with your own design aesthetic, okay? I am not expecting you to take this layout verbatim and copy it, which a couple of you did, and I'm not sure where the misunderstanding came in. This is a design class, and I am grading you on your design, so I expect original design. I'm not asking you to take what I have here and copy it verbatim. Okay, so I'm expecting everyone to have a unique design for their web pages. All right, this is my unique design, and this is only an example. This is not what I want you to do. This is only an example of one design solution. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on this up here. So this is kind of like what I've decided to have for my header graphic on my homepage. And I'm pretty much done. I had all this text in here from my wireframe, so I don't really need to add anything. Now, let's pretend this was a client website. I could take and print these out, and I can drive over to my clients and sit down with them and go through the website. Or I can literally make a JPEG of this and send it to my client, and they can look through the option or one of the options for their homepage design. I might also have designed several other options for the homepage and sent those over as well. But for purposes of this assignment and what you're expected to do, you only have to design one. But in a real life situation, you may end up designing several to send over to your client. Okay, so that's my header, and I'm finished with my homepage. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of this back into the 4UP scenario. Okay, so over here, I have my homepage mock-up, and it's finished and ready to go. And over here, I have my wireframe. Now over here, I have my inside section. Okay, and we're going to talk a little more about what I've done with this one. Okay. Now I enhanced my wireframe document a little more before I started putting in the content. Okay, let's look at what I've done here to my wireframes document. Okay, I'm going to pull this out. And I'm going to open it up so that you can see what I've done here. Okay. All right, so here is the wireframe we went over last time. Okay, I believe I also had the footer turned on. So you had the footer. Okay, so this is the wireframe. Well, as I started thinking through my website, I realized that the interior pages of my website are going to have several looks. There's going to be a look which is which is kind of like the introduction page to my portfolio. There's also going to be an area where I'm going to have a gallery. So I went ahead and I did a wireframe for my gallery. I'm going to go ahead and show that to you now. And I'm going to turn off my content and turn on my gallery. So here, based on the grid that I sort of established here on my content page, I went ahead and gridded it up even more into smaller units, and I created my gallery. So when I want to sit down and actually create these thumbnails for this, so that when I go to create my gallery later on in the class, I have all the thumbnails sized down to the right size. And I've got the crop boxes here with my wireframes in order to do that masking that I just showed you. Okay, so I've got that gallery page. Notice I've got it all in one document here. I don't have several documents. I only have two documents, my home page and my interior pages. So I turned off my gallery. I also have a grouping here for when someone clicks on one of those gallery thumbnails, they're going to get a larger image, and this would be the size that I'm going to make all of my large images. Okay, so I have a wireframe set up for that so that I can get an idea of the size of that. I also have another page, and I actually started putting content in here for my bio. So I have a page where I'm going to have an image up here, and then a header title, and then I will have some copy. And I believe my footer will probably move further down the page. I'm planning to make this a page that's going to activate a scroll bar. So right now, you're looking at the design portion that's above the fold. When I start rolling this out into HTML, I'm going to add a lot more text, and it's probably going to activate a scroll bar once I go beyond the fold here. And that's what I'm talking about, where one of your pages in your website, at least one, needs to activate a scroll bar in the web browser. Okay, so I'm starting to work up kind of wireframe mock-ups of the other pages in my site. Now notice here that I did not use readable text. What I used here is, and I'll go ahead and select that, and I'll get the type tool here, and I'll take this out and I'll show you where this is at. Basically, I just put the type tool here and I drew a box that I want in terms of the size of my text, and then I went up under type and I pulled down to paste Lorem Ipsum, and what that does is it actually pastes in some just Greek text so that you can show your client, well, we're going to have text there and it's kind of going to look like this, and it's going to kind of have this, sans serif look, and so on and so forth. But I did go ahead and put my image in here, and I developed up the point size for my titles. I might even want to come in here and change that even further, or I might want to make that bold. So it stands out on the page. So I have Lisa Gabriel, design educator, and then this is my bio and my photo here. Okay, so I'm starting to think about other pages that are going to take place in my website. And you can sort of see here that I have all of this going on all in one document. So I have a bio page here. I have my full-size page for my full-size images. I've got my gallery going on in here. I have my intro to my gallery, which is kind of like my portfolio page. And I'm starting to think this through and generating a more elaborate wireframe. Now, you were only expected to turn in 2 wireframes last week. However, I was hoping that you would further your wireframes, or at least you should this week, to include other pages inside the website and the other types of design layouts that are going to take place inside your website. So I've got several here. I've got the gallery layout. Well, I've got this content layout. Then I have the gallery layout, which is this one. And then I have the full-size image layout, and then I have the bio layout. So you can kind of see how they all are related. They're all very much related because they're all based on a grid that I kind of established early on in my wireframes. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead here then and look at how I'm creating the. Let's go ahead and put this back into the 4-up scenario. How I'm creating the mock-up for my insides. Now I only went ahead and mocked up one here. Although you can kind of get an idea now after me showing you how I mocked this one up, and I'll show you how I mocked this one up, how to start mocking up the rest of your pages. So this one here, I'm going to go ahead and break it free here and enlarge it so that you can kind of see here. All right. Whoops. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong key. Okay, so here's my mock-up. Notice over here that this one here I mocked up before I actually expanded the wireframes on that other one. So this mock-up is basically using the same wireframe as before. As you can kind of see, I've gone ahead and used those wireframe boxes to crop those images. So you can kind of see here what I did is I went into Photoshop, and I'm going to go ahead. I've got the example here. What I'm going to go ahead and do is actually open, actually I'm going to go to the wireframe one here. Let's open up the wireframe one, the inside. Okay, where is that one? This one, okay. So we're going to go back to this one, and I'm going to make it big as well, and open it up. Oh, I keep hitting the wrong key on that one. Okay, so basically I want to show you how I created that wireframe. This one here, this one, the done one, this wireframe, I want to show you how I did this, okay? So I'm going to turn off all these additional wireframes and turn on the content one and my header, okay? All right, so here I am with my standard wireframe, and I'm going to open up the images that I'm going to use for this. And if I can remember properly where they are, okay, they're in web design. Okay, spring, web design, eCampus 9, 8. Okay, website, here we go. Okay, so here I have my wireframe. Or I'm sorry, not my wireframes, but I actually have my images that I'm going to use in my wireframe. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of those here. And they're these 3 JPEGs, okay? So I'm going to open those up. Now they're all separate files. And I'm going to go ahead and float all these windows so we can kind of play with this. Okay, so here's my finished wireframe, and then here's the one I'm going to do right now. And here are all the images that I'm going to fit in there, right here. These 4 images are going to go inside here. So basically, I just come over here, and with my move, actually this is the move tool here, I'm going to just do a Command A to select that entire image there, and I'm just going to drag and drop it over here into my wireframe document. Okay, see where I am here? And once I get it into my wireframe document, I'm going to hit Command T, or you can use the, what's it under? You can bring up the transform right here for rotate, or whatever it is you're trying to do, scale. But it's easiest to just go, it tells you here, free transform, Command T. Okay, so just go Command T, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to rotate this because I want it to fit this way. Okay. Now I'm going to kind of size it here slightly. You know, it looks like it's a little bit short. My wireframe box is a little bit larger, so I'm just going to enlarge it just slightly. All right. So because I'm in the transform mode, up across the top here, I actually have the percentage of this image. I'm going to go ahead and select the percentage for the width, and I'm going to type in 101, and I'm going to hit this little link or maintain aspect ratio icon here, and what it's going to do is it's going to enlarge it 101 and 101 in both directions. That's proportionally enlarging. Now you can kind of see none of that wireframe. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Okay, none of that wireframe is actually poking through now. Okay, so once you get it to size, you hit enter. Enter, okay. All right, so now I have it to size. So now I'm going to drag it down into my content folder. All right, so now I have it down here in the content folder, and I'm going to drag it up and put it right below this wireframe box right here. Okay, so I've got that here. And I'm going to hold down the Option key like I showed you on the last one and click. And notice that now it is sizing that image right in the exact space that I want, just using that wireframe box. Okay, now if I want to change the positioning of this image, I can do it while it's masked out here, just by using my arrow keys here. See, I'm moving it around. Whoops, you don't want to move it too far because the wireframe box will start peeking through. Okay, so just one more time, I'll do another one here. Okay, so I've got this one, and using my move tool, I'm going to do Command A to select the entire image. Okay, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into my wireframe document. Okay, so it comes in as a layer, and if you're already in the content layer, it already puts it in there. I'm going to hit Command T for the transform, and I'm going to hold down the shift key to constrain this transform, and I'm going to rotate it to the position I'd like and kind of put it over top. It looks like it also is a little bit small, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change this to 101 and hit the little maintain aspect ratio link here, and it is going to give me 101 and 101 in both directions, which is what I want. I'm going to hit enter. Okay. And then I'm going to move that image down here below or above the second box here. And then I'm going to hold down the option key, click on that little line and crop it in. And now, hence we're just populating the wireframe by using what we've already created. So it's kind of nice and handy, and it constrains everything to the size we want. And as long as you keep those two rules that I wrote down in the assignment in mind, you should be fine. And you should end up with what I ended up with here, which is a finished mock-up. So what I expect you to do is only turn 2 of these in. You only have to turn in your home page, which I have my home page here. So this is my home page mock-up. Okay. So I've got my home page mock-up and I have my inside page mock-up. Now I showed you in your wireframe when I expanded out these wireframes here, I showed you how that this may consist of other layouts. So I expect that you go ahead and produce those other layouts in your wireframes, and then additionally populate them and make mock-ups of them with all your content, because you will need to have all that finished by next week. So that's where you want to focus most of your time, is getting all these pages sort of together. Now, one thing I want to mention, I was looking at what was turned in last week, and almost everybody did it properly except for one person. Make sure when you save out your JPEGs of this wireframe to turn into me, well, actually this week you're actually turning in your Photoshop documents. So yeah, I believe you are. Let me go back and check the assignment. Yes, you will complete 2 Photoshop mockups this week, and you'll actually be giving me your Photoshop mockups as layered files, okay? So instead of saving them out as JPEGs this week, you're actually going to be saving them out and giving me the layered file, the layered Photoshop files, okay? So it's really important that you make a folder with your last name and call it PS Mockups, and put those 2 layered Photoshop files inside the mockups folder, and then zip that, create a zip file of that, and then that's what you'll attach to this assignment, okay? And that way I can take a look at how you're working in Photoshop, and I can give you pointers if I see anything. If you don't hear any comments or see any comments in the notes, or you got full credit, then you're doing everything exactly how you should. You're following along. Okay, I don't want to make this video too long, but I think I've pretty much captured the mock-ups for this week. And if you have any questions, you can post those in the week 8 problems and solutions. And all I could say is, between now and then, happy Photoshopping.